We got back from Cuba a couple of days ago to find that the Lake District has been covered by a blanket of snow. It's like a wintry wonderland. And so I've come out today to the Central Lake District, to Rydal Water, to try and get some pictures of the snowy peaks. Now where I live on the eastern edge of the Lake District, we've had loads of snow. We must have had 5 or 6 inches. But now that I'm here at Rydal, as you can see from Nabscar behind me, there's hardly any here at all. Anyway, now that we're here, we might as well try and get at least one shot. So, it's pretty windy here this morning, so there are no reflections on the surface of the lake. And so I think, as usual, I will crack out the big stopper and do some long exposures. As you can see, I'm still using the M10. I rang the people that are fixing my lens and unfortunately it's still not ready. But the good news is that we do expect it to be back in next week, which means I shall have it for next weekend when I'll be out shooting with one of my best mates and fellow YouTube photographer, James Burns. Now you may remember last time I was out and I was using the M10, I said that there's no bulb mode. And so again, today I'm limited to being able to do exposures around 30 seconds, which in this case is probably about right. But a couple of people did make a recommendation that if you haven't got a bulb mode, what you can do is to take multiple exposures, let's say something like maybe 8 at around 15 seconds, and blend them together. Now one of the questions that I got asked a lot after the last video that I put out is why aren't I using the M50 to take the photographs and using the M10 to vlog on? Now there's a couple of really good reasons for that, which I'm going to go through now. The first of those reasons is that the M50 has a built-in microphone jack, which means I can use an external microphone. The M10 doesn't have that, and the built-in microphone is pretty poor, so I have to use this. It's a Zoom H1, and I record the audio on this and I record the pictures using the M10, and then I have to sync that up in iMovie afterwards. Now that can be a bit fiddly, and sometimes the picture and the audio can get out of sync. The other thing that's really good about the M50 is it has fantastic autofocus. It's got Canon's dual pixel autofocus. Now the M10 doesn't have that, and so sometimes I end up with shots that look a little bit like this. So I'm back on the M50 now, and you can see how that autofocus locks onto my face. Canon's dual pixel autofocus is absolutely fantastic for video. Anyway, I'm taking some more long exposures. There is no light. It is a Saturday morning, of course, so there wouldn't be any light. But I am getting some quite nice shadows of Nabscar reflected on the surface of the lake. So I'm getting a couple of decent-ish shots that look kind of okay. Now while I'm using the M10 today, I did use the M50 while I was in Cuba. Now I didn't do an awful lot of photography while we were away, but I did do some long exposure seascapes, and we also took a trip to Havana, and I tried my hand at a bit of kind of travel and street photography. Now I'm not a particularly good travel photographer. When it comes to photography, I'm a bit of a one-trick pony, I'll be honest with you, and I don't want to bore you with my holiday snaps, but here are just a couple of photos that I took while I was in Havana. Now it certainly was warmer in Cuba than it is here today. As far as using the M50 as a stills camera is concerned, for landscapes I found it absolutely fine. For the travel photography, for the street photography, I didn't really get on with it very well. I didn't really get on with the EVF, if I'm honest, and I suspect that's really down to me. I suspect if I persevere with it, I will get the hang of it. And as many of you commented on my previous video, unfortunately, mirrorless really is the future. The other thing that we discussed in the last video that I put out was tripods. Now, whilst this little travel tripod was brilliant in Cuba, it packed down nicely and went into my case, I am going to invest in a better tripod. Now, normally, the only person who I take gear advice from is James Burns. Julian shoots with a Nikon, Gareth shoots with a Fuji, or is it Sony? Or is it Fuji again? I can't keep up. And obviously neither of them can therefore be trusted. And James shoots with he's got a Manfrotto 055 4-section carbon fibre tripod. And that looks brilliant. But on this occasion, I'm going to take the advice of Melvin Nicholson. If you don't know Melvin, he's another YouTube photographer. He's a professional, a very, very good photographer based here in the north of England. And he's recommended that I go for a Benro. I'm going to go for a TMA 48 CXL, which is a carbon fibre 4-section tripod that will extend with the centre column up above head height for me. Now, you may remember that I would normally shoot with a 6D, and that doesn't have an articulated screen. So what I'm hoping is that by having a slightly higher tripod, I'm going to save my poor old back a little bit. Obviously, breaking my lens and having to buy a new tripod, I am incurring quite a few costs at the moment. I've also done some work on my website, and part of that work has been to introduce a shop section where you can buy some of my best photos. Now, I've done all the work myself. As you may or may not know, I work in IT, so I do have some IT skills. But I would really appreciate your feedback on what you think of the shop section. I guess you've either bought prints yourself before from other photographers, or indeed sell them yourself on your own website. So I would really appreciate you popping along and having a look and letting me know what you think. Also, if you're interested in the process that I went through to set up the shop, then I wrote a blog article about that, and I'll leave a link to that in the description below. Anyway, it is bleeding Baltic here today. I can't feel my fingers anymore, so I'm going to pack up my gear, I'm going to head home, and hopefully I'll see you next week.